The original blood libel was the accusation that Jews use Christian blood to make their matzah for Passover. This is absolutely and entirely absurd because the Torah forbids a Jew from eating any blood. We actually salt meat to extract the blood before we will even eat that meat. Yet, this was something that was believed by most of the world. It's basically an accusation. A blood libel is an accusation by anti-Semites against Jews, and it's a complete fabricated lie. The most modern-day blood libel is the idea that Israel is occupying territories in Israel. That Gaza is occupied territory, the West Bank is occupied territory. Actually, according to international law, those lands belong to Israel. Israel is not occupying any land, not East Jerusalem, none of those lands. It's a blood libel against Israel. And here we have international law expert and a lawyer, Natasha Hausdorff, explaining what a blood libel this is. Everyone must know this. Let's watch this together.
There is a critical rule of customary international law that determines the borders of newly emerging states at their moment of independence. It is called uti possidetis juris. It's applied universally wherever there is no agreement to the contrary. So it's the default rule. And in Israel's case, in 1948, it determined that the pre-existing administrative lines of the British mandate that preceded the State of Israel became Israel's international borders when it declared independence. This is the rule that the pre-existing administrative lines become the new lines, the new borders of the state. And the reason that it was introduced was to promote stability and certainty and to prevent fratricidal struggles. The International Court of Justice outlined these justifications for it when it recognized that it had become established. It was introduced in the 19th century, applied in South America with the withdrawal of the Spanish. It's applied in Asia and Africa. Also to the dissolution of the former communist federations. Ukraine's borders followed uti possidetis juris. And that's quite a critical comparison because I think the three of us would agree that Russia has been in occupation of Crimea from Ukraine. Why is that? Because Crimea was part of Ukraine according to the rule of uti possidetis juris at Ukraine's formation. Well, in the same way, when Israel came into existence, the West Bank and East Jerusalem and Gaza fell within that territory of the administrative lines of the pre-existing British mandate. Now that's critical because immediately in this war of annihilation that I've described, Jordan occupies the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Israel, and Egypt occupies Gaza. And that occupation ended in 1967 when Israel recovered that territory. That's when this allegation of occupation for many people is dated from. The problem with that is you cannot occupy what is already your own sovereign territory.
I.e., if Ukraine was to retake Crimea and hold it, no one would say that was occupation of Crimea.
From Russia,
yes.
Indeed.
Right, okay.
And that is a stark parallel comparison. Now, what Israel did in 1967 is it applied its law, administration, and jurisdiction in full over East Jerusalem. It reunited the city, but it didn't do so in the West Bank. Instead, it applied a temporary framework. Why? Because under the Land for Peace formula, it expected that it would give up some of the West Bank, or Judea and Samaria, to Jordan in pursuit of peace. But when the 1994 peace agreement with Jordan finally came about, Jordan didn't want anything to do with the West Bank. So this temporary administrative framework that Israel established in 1967 held until the Oslo Accords and the creation of areas A, B, and C that we've described. But the application of this term occupation it's another blood libel because it has no basis in international law. It is used as a political term. And the preface to it, this illegal occupation, which is so often referred to, is also only ever applied to Israel. There is no concept of a broader concept of illegal occupation in international law. And in all the instances, situations of real occupation in the context of which is envisaged by the Geneva Conventions, and the context of, the real transfer of populations in Cambodia, Vietnam, in Nagorno-Karabakh, in northern Cyprus, none of these cases has this allegation of illegal occupation or illegal settlements even been advanced. So this is another example of a modern blood libel being deployed against Israel in order to shape the discussion, in order to shape the international politics and diplomacy, in order then to put pressure on Israel. And we've seen the consequences of that, I'm afraid, in so many respects. This is what led to the 7th of October.
Which essentially means that if you use the word occupation, you are actually a proponent of blood libels. You are promoting blood libel, a clear, blatant lie, which is something that is against Jewish people, which is what we call a blood libel. It's literally like saying that Jews kill Christians for their blood to be used in matzah. There's absolutely no difference between the two. Everyone would agree regarding Crimea, right, that Ukraine has every right to take it, and we would never be called an occupier. There is absolutely no difference between Ukraine, Russia, and Crimea, Israel, Palestinians, and the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, Gaza. No difference whatsoever. Don't be a proponent of a blood libel. Say it the way it is. It belongs to Israel. It's Israel's land.